Hello. Today we're going over Chapter 4, Communications. It'll be broken down into three separate short lectures. Radio and telephone communications, they link you to the EMS, to fire departments, and law enforcement. And in this business, you need to know what your system can do and cannot do. And you need to know how to use the system efficiently and effectively. So communication is the transmission of information to another person. And this can be done either verbally or non-verbally. Verbal communication skills are important for the EMT to have a good grasp of. It enables you to gather critical information, coordinate with other responders, and interact with other healthcare professionals. Also part of the communication process is documentation, and we'll be talking more about documentation in the next chapter. But in documentation, it's part of the patient's permanent medical record. It is good for demonstrating appropriate care was being delivered, and it helps others in patient's future care, because the whole care of the patient, starting with you as an EMT, and then goes on in further into the system once you get to the hospital, and then the nurses, the doctors, the surgeons, and so on. And complete patient records, having complete patient records guarantee proper transfer of responsibility. It's compliance with requirements of health departments and law enforcement agencies. And it also fulfills your organization's administrative needs. So let's talk about some EMS communications and the equipment and components. Here we have a base station radio, picture of it. It's in a hospital. The base station radio is a two-way transmitter and receiving radio, and it's at a fixed site such as a dispatch center or the hospital. So it's set. It doesn't move around. Once it's put into the system, it stays right where it started, unless there's a remodel, and it can get moved that way. But other than that, it's a base station, meaning it stays where it's at. We have mobile two-way radios. These are usually used in the vehicle, and they're affixed in the vehicle. And something to remember is their wattage is roughly 25 to 50 watts. Watt being the unit of measurement of the output of the radio, so the transmittable part of the radio. Now we have one of the radios that we use continuously, and we have it on our personal lot, is a portable radio. It's a handheld two-way radio carried on a belt clip, or it might be carried in a what they call a Yankee strap. Goes across the chest, a strap, and then it has a pouch to carry the radio in. And the output, though, on these portable radios is very low. It's 1 to 5 watts. So they don't have great distance of travel. These are the radios that you use in close proximity to each other on the scene or on a call. So with the lower wattage radios, we have what are called repeaters. The repeater, and you see them up on top of water towers, tall buildings. You'll see all kinds of different antennas, maybe even round antennas up on the water towers and up on high-rise buildings. These repeaters pick up a signal from a lower powered unit, such as a mobile radio or a portable radio. And what it does is it retransmits it at a higher power. So it takes that 1 to 5 watt portable radio, hits the repeater, and boosts it up to 50 or maybe even 100 watts of power to get more distance. And it allows for the lower radio power signals to be transmitted over longer distances. Especially the portables, because they're so low in wattage, only 1 to 5 watts. There's got to be a way to get that wattage boosted, and it's done through what we call a repeater. We also have the use of cellular phones. They make use of established commercial cell phone provider, and the cell phone technology led to the 800 megahertz trunking system, to where you can talk on your radio. You may be able to talk to the water department, the electrical department, the police department, you name it. The trunking system allows that to be done on the 800 megahertz. Trunking is a communication system that pools frequencies and routes the transmissions to the next available frequency. So you're not losing anything in the communication process. Some principles of communication, pretty self-explanatory. Make sure your radio's on, and make sure the volume is adjusted either up or down depending on where you're at on the scene, or en route to the scene, or at the patient's house. If you're on scene with a patient, you can turn it down. You don't have to have it blaring so loud that you can't communicate with the patient. And anyway, you're on the scene, you've already got a patient. Doesn't matter what's going on in the other parts of the city at that point. You need to listen to the radio frequency before you transmit. Someone may be using it already and has just paused to take a break, or is waiting for communication back after they've sent a message. We're going to press the push to talk button, and then hold it down for a second, and then start your transmission. If you hit the button and start talking, the system hasn't had time to allow it to get the entire communication. So it'll chop off the first word or two. And speak with your lips around 2 to 3 inches away from the microphone. Don't be doing the old, I gotta get a stuff to eat. Keep it about 2 to 3 inches away from your mouth so people can understand you. When we're calling someone else, such as dispatch, medic 33, you're going to speak slowly. Don't let yourself sound panicked or out of control. You want to keep your transmission brief, organized, and pertinent. If it takes longer than 30 seconds to get your communication out, stop for a second and allow any emergency traffic to jump in if needed. We use plain English when we're transmitting in the fire service. We don't use 10 codes, we don't use slang, and we try not to use profanity. It says somewhere in your SOPs, don't swear on the radio. Keep that in the back of your mind. There's some terminology differences you'll encounter that is regional. such as code 3 versus priority 1. Code 3, uh, lights and siren. Priority 1 might be lights and siren somewhere else. We're going to use the word received when we have communication and somebody tells us something to do. You respond with received. We're not going to use 10-4. And there's some other codes that are out there. Some people use what is called a signal 27 for a victim that's dead on scene. It's based on each entity. Some other things to remember is that your radio transmission can be heard by the public by using scanners. Pretty plain and simple. So we're not going to give out the patient's name over the air. We're going to use terms such as affirmative for yes and negative for no. Avoid, and we do this because it avoids confusion. And when you're giving your hospital radio report, offer your assessment findings, but refrain from offering your diagnosis. This is the end of part 1 of 3.